very much for taking some time to watch this presentation. I'm going to kind of keep it as quick as possible. I don't want to go into too much detail, but there'll be an overview of how our system's put together as one of the slides in between. So what is my background? My background is around 30 years in IT. I was lucky enough at the age of 19 to be running the IT system for St John Ambulance, both in the mainland and also Northern Ireland. And that was an experience because we'd gone from typewriters to a Wang VS system, which was a mini frame computer that did word processing, and you could also do other things. My claim to fame was creating a system that enabled the client to call up for a first aid course, and we were able to real time enter those details onto the system, which would create the joining instructions, create the invoice, and obviously put a record on the database. And that was a great scenario for me, my first ever project, and I learned a lot from that. The Wang systems were very popular within law firms. There was a system called OIS, which was specifically kind of geared towards law firms because of the word processing aspects. An all-in-one system where you had all of these terminals connecting in. And I remember the days of the thick coaxial cable and having to sort of thread those through ducting, and it was a nightmare. It would have been a real workout back then because it was so thick. I went on from that particular background onto PC networking, and I worked for some of the biggest firms in Europe. I met my now business partner in one of the firms called Simmons and Simmons, where I was traveling the globe and implementing projects. And that's quite relevant to my business now, because back in the 90s, I did my first remote access project, and that was between London and Hong Kong. And I was just blown away by the way this software worked. What you were able to do was to log on to the London account system from Hong Kong, and believe it or not, those users in Hong Kong had a faster experience than those who were in the London office, who were in the same building as where the account system was. I fell in love with the software. The Citrix software is what was used back then, and that's what I now use in my private cloud to operate out from Stevenage and Harlow, within the UK, obviously, on our secure data center for bespoke systems. So that's a bit of the background on me. Basically, I've been an IT director about 5 times in different firms in the city, managed multiple £1 million worth of budgets, managed teams, implemented countless projects to success, over 70 courses. And with those courses, I'm formally trained in firewalls, specifically Checkpoint Firewall 1, which was one of the original most secured firewalls on the planet. Obviously Windows, things like Active Directory, TCP/IP, all of the background that you need to be able to understand fully, not just IT, but things surrounding IT. So I was an internal telecoms manager as well, and obviously all things to do with networking and smartphones. Right, our cloud PC desktop, that is our main product. And what it is, it's an IT system in a box. What you're able to do from our system is have everything that you would like to have and the things that you don't know that you'd like to have. And hopefully you'll be able to see the contrast between what we're doing and perhaps what you're doing, or somebody who you could refer us to. So firstly, our system has to be easy to use, because nobody's going to use something that's really complex and you can't get into and you cannot get anywhere with. You have to be able to access it from anywhere. It's got to be the easiest way to get into business IT. So business owners can just sort of plug into our system and know that they've got a top of the range system with no compromises. No upfront costs for a regular user. So I'm talking about maybe a set of users that are 1 to 5 users. Obviously, if it's a bigger company and we have to do lots of account setup, there's a small marginal cost to just the time that would take. It's Mac, Windows, and tablet compatible. And obviously you can use your smartphones to get your mobile email. And it's the best way of using your smartphone. So this isn't the old sort of pop through your iMap. It's as good as anyone within a blue chip company gets. So real-time email, you know, instantly, not just your inbox, but your calendar and your contacts and your tasks synchronized as well. If somebody in your office or on the other side of the world puts an appointment on your system, there it is straight away on your mobile device as well. So as I said, no compromise between what you're getting and somebody in the Sharper Savile Row suit in London, because this is exactly the same software that they're using, top of the range. It has to be secure, it has to be fast, there has to be a reduction if there's less staff, and an incremental increase if there's more staff. You know, if you've got an internal IT guy and he's costing you 70 grand a year, you don't get a reduction when one of your team leaves the office. With our system, you not only get the benefit of somebody who was on 100K plus per year plus benefits, but if you decrease your staff count, you get a decrease in the amount that you're spending. That's only fair, isn't it? Okay. Free upgrades to Microsoft Office. For those who are using things like Office 365, why pay for software as a service only? Yes, you've got Office 365 and you've got Outlook, you've got Word, you've got PowerPoint. But why not also have an IT expert on hand for the same costs per month as well as you getting the benefits of the latest versions of Office that go? You can't very well phone up Microsoft and start asking them about your telecoms or your anything else to do with IT. You might want a multiple function device, you know, that does photocopying as well. You might want the latest printer or scanner. Within our cost price, you're getting that 9 to 5, Monday to Friday as well. Business agility. Let's say, for example, you were to take on another client and you needed to be able to expand your offices, either in this country or abroad. Your member of staff only needs to install one little piece of software on their machine, and instantly that member of staff becomes a fully fledged member of staff as far as your IT systems are concerned. No compromise again, no having to load up third-party remote access products, learning a different system. Is it secure? Has it got two-factor authentication? All of those types of things. Okay, moving forward. Some of the companies that we represent, won't go through all of that. Obviously, every company can show who they work with. Our system's quite simple in terms of operation. One, you log on. And if you notice, there's a third box. That third box is for two-factor authentication, something that will change every time you log on. We happen to use the Google authentication system just because everyone knows who Google are and we don't have to explain anything. And in that respects, it's easy. And a lot of third-party companies use Google authentication as well for their two-factor authentication. Once you've gone through the security system, you get an icon, so point 2, and that is where you can click on your desktop. And that's where the magic happens. You no longer, at that point, are using your system, whether it's a PC or Mac. You're using our system, pre-configured with all of the latest and greatest security behind it. It really is that simple. Okay, that's this section just describes some of my past, what we talked about earlier on. What does this solve, this particular system? It solves scale. So you can be a single user company, you can be 400 users. We don't care. All we do is we scale it out, and immediately, I knew it. This is the postman. she's just delivered, and the dog, as usual, is making sure she has her say. Anyway, back to the presentation. We've got the speed, we've got the support, we've got the backup and business continuity. Many companies want these things and need these things. And to get big contracts, you need to have these things in place. Well, why not have it in place from day one? Everything that we have in our Stevenage data center, we replicate across to our Harlow data center at no extra cost to you. So you create a document, bang, there it is. And we don't use Mickey Mouse products to get from Stevenage to data center. It's a 1 gig line that is secured, and it's secured by default. It's a private network. There's none of this having to create a VPN or go over the internet. It's built in within the data center services that we use. Again, we're experts at choosing data centers. So we made sure that our business partner there is phenomenal and technically minded and technically gifted with a very fast network. We take care of most of your licensing. So again, a worry that you don't need to have. Your remote access project is dealt with because it's inherent within the way that you're connecting. Security and IT costs are predictable. Right, again, just to summarize, point 1, when you're connecting up to our system, of course, you're going over SSL, so there's no problems with that. You're using the same system that 100% of the Fortune 100 companies are using. We would assume that allows you to understand that this has got credibility. 99% of the Fortune 500 use this same system to do their remote networking. Again, do we need to then emphasize that any other method behind it perhaps isn't as good? Point 2 is when you're on our desktop, obviously you're still secured over the SSL protocol, which has never been broken. So again, if that protocol were to be broken, you can be assured that the internet would fix it, because every service, whether it's banking, whether you're ordering from Amazon, whatever, all use SSL as the backbone of the security for you to connect up to. So you're in good hands there. On our desktop, now this is a core difference between our desktop and your Mac or PC, or your client's Macs or PCs. What do we do that's different in terms of security? If you look at point 3, you probably can't see very well, but we're just highlighting, I think we've got about 10 different security products. I couldn't get them all on this PowerPoint. If you notice, there were loads of tabs there. But as a good example, from our desktop here, you've got deep packet inspection by default. Anything that comes to this desktop, we're not only looking at it from a networking perspective, as they say, we're looking at both layers 7 and layers 3. Some people might understand that. One is a kind of general upper layer, and the other one is within the actual data packet itself. We're able to see things that people would like to hide, and we're able to mitigate against them. So that's really important. And all of these tabs on this point 3 detail that and show and really do go into detail. I can predict that no one within this particular stream has got these features on their PC or Mac. I'm pretty sure of that. Point 4, this is some code. And all that code does is it helps to manage the desktop. So at runtime, when you log on, we evaluate what you're going to be using. So let's say you've got a member of staff and all you want them to do is to have Excel. We can put them in a group, and our evaluation software will say, this person's in the Excel group, we'll only give them Excel. By no back door can they run anything else, Word, PowerPoint, do anything else, get a web browser. We've got not just inclusion criteria, we've got exclusion. So if you think that because you've got a link in Excel that runs Chrome or something, that you're going to be able to get out onto the internet, it's not going to work. Okay, so that's real-time evaluation of the desktop at runtime. Point 5 over here, some people would understand, but it's called group policy. Because this is a proper network, with proper power behind the network, we're able to manage every aspect of the desktop. So that's from the web browser to what you can put on the desktop to scripts that can be run. Point 6 over here, this is our firewall and intrusion detection system. And to put that into perspective, we have 2 that run so that if one goes down, the client doesn't know and you continue to run. I'd like you to compare this to what you may be using right now to do this Zoom session. You probably got a supplied router from Virgin, from BT or whoever that was free of charge with your service, or you might have spent 70, 80 pounds on a Netgear. What I'm pointing at on point 6 here is worth 15k, and that's 15k each. And we've got 4 of them. So we've got 2 working in tandem in Stevenage and 2 working in tandem in Harlow, are only 2 points of entrance. I won't go through all of the details, but you can imagine we've got things like intrusion detection, we've got additional anti-spam on there, we've got IPS, we've got all sorts of things. So if you're comparing that you've got a firewall, this is like comparing Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes-Benz to a family car. The difference is just, you know, they might have 4 wheels. That's where the differences end. Point 7 is our proxy server. Anytime we go out and browse the internet from our site, it goes through another server that does checks and balances. So before, and I'll underline that, before the BBC website comes back to you, what you're seeing has been evaluated as to whether or not it comes under about 70 different categories. So basically, you're not going to get any spyware. You're not going to get any backdoor downloads onto the desktop. Since 2007, we've been running. We've updated our desktops about 4 times for the different versions of Windows. 0 viruses. Okay, some of the data we've got behind our systems are owned by some of the most secure, most secure environments that are on within the UK. So law firms, nursery nurses, medical companies, accountancy practices. And it doesn't matter whether you're a single user or a 10-user firm, you get exactly the same option. What I've been showing you now is actually running from my remote desktop. So you can see that it's real time and you can see the speed at which I'm operating. No lag, despite the fact that I'm running a Zoom session. And you can see that when I start up an application, even though this is effectively a remote of a remote, because we're doing Zoom and then we're doing my session, you can probably hear me typing and you can see that coming out real time. So there you go. That's my presentation. There's a lot more to this system than what I've just shown, because I didn't even talk about our network antivirus that scans all of the servers as well. And then other services such as our updating systems. We don't just do a Windows update. We have a centralized system that pushes the updates out and checks to see if anything has changed on the systems. It gives us an audit report every single morning to see whether or not anything's changed. And if it has, we would know that maybe we had an intrusion of some sort after the event, because obviously you're meant to let clients know if you've had some sort of compromise on your systems. So that's it. That's our cloud, what we do, and it's top of the range.
I do, yeah. So basically, I run a Mac here. This is my day-to-day computer. To be honest, most of the stuff that I do day in, day out, it's browser-led and it's encrypted via the browser. I do all my quoting via third-party browser-led stuff, QuickBooks sort of style. So this computer is kind of just like, it doesn't matter what it is, it's disposable. I can do everything the same on that and all that kind of thing. I've got 2 pieces of software that I use on a PC, which is there. And fundamentally, it's a pain in my backside, because one of the pieces of software has got a USB dongle license, and the other piece of software inverted commas, is actually an IP address tied remote desktop that gets me into another computer in another factory for me to quote out of. Is there a way within your system of me getting that computer to, in effect, work from home so that I can log into the dongle and IP addressed software without actually having to be at this desk? Because I want to work at home for at least a day a week with the children and all that kind of thing, being in the situation that we are. But as it stands, I have to be here because that computer is sort of fixed to the wall, as it were. So I've looked at TeamViewer and all those kind of things, but they only work if you leave your computer on. And I don't really want to leave my computer on over the weekend when no one's going to use it, just in case I want to work at home on a Monday morning.
The answer is yes.
Cool. Let's.
Yeah, remember the software that we're using is the best in the world. So there's nothing that you can say that hasn't happened since the 90s when this software
absolutely.
was, in terms of Citrix. I mean,
Yeah.
they're cool. They're a cool company. They get to be advertised on the side of a Red Bull racing car. So, you know,
that's where I recognise it from.
They're also one of the few
written
companies,
on the side of my bloody baseball cap that I wear every day.
Yeah, they're one of the few companies
nice
that have managed to, for want of a better word, get in bed with Microsoft and either not be pushed out of business or destroyed. It's as simple as that. And that's because they're effectively a development arm. And Microsoft actually say on some accounts, don't use our bottom of the range software, actually put Citrix on top of remote desktop services because it's a better solution. So they get a free R&D section that improves their base product. And that is why companies in the know would never go near RDP. We only ever use RDP once we're within the Citrix session.
That was my next question, is the RDP side of things. Obviously, I log on with a username and password to get in, and apparently it's secure. I don't care enough because it's
not at the time when you're putting in the username and password.
Well, the thing is it's one of those things where the data that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, if someone wants to hack in and find out how much I'm buying Windows for, you know, fine. I don't care enough. There's nothing else in that computer that really is of any sensitive nature. I don't email. I don't do anything sensitive on that computer. I pretty much just quote, and then I do at the moment, I just use Google Drive, but just enough to put a PDF into there to get it onto this machine because I prefer working on this computer. But it was when I got the software from the factory that I work with, the timber side of things, it came on a dongle, and it kind of threw me to the point of, I can remote desktop. I know I can remote desktop from remote desktop because I've done it before, where I've quoted on this computer using TeamViewer. I think it was I tried it with TeamViewer to TeamViewer, and then into TeamViewer I went into and did the remote desktop stuff, and it worked okay. It wasn't that laggy that it wasn't usable. However, that as a solution only works if I leave the computers on, which then means that if they go to sleep, which computers like to do or whatever, and I'm working from home, I'm snookered.
Okay. And that's just segues into another point. There are loads of products that do remote control, so to speak. And again, the only thing I would posit, without going into too much detail, is if the Fortune 100, none of them are prepared to use those products, that gives you the answer as to whether or not those products meet the requirements.
For me, it was a case of just seeing how laggy it was as a remote service kind of thing from that computer to that computer once. Then it got deleted because I don't like TeamViewer at all in the slightest. I don't trust it in the slightest. But it was a case of just seeing whether it was possible so that I could then look into a better solution. Now that the iPad's got full mouse support, there's nothing to say that I couldn't have both of those computers set up to your system, for example, and then actually just work from anywhere, and it makes no difference. So actually,
your iPad has got a because the clients for Citrix are free. You would be able to operate that like a proper PC with the mouse support.
Yeah, it's really good as well.
We do
It
that
works
from
really
a
well.
lot of people on our platform do it from Android because it's always had the mouse
Yeah.
support.
Yeah, Apple are just about getting there with
Oh, they
realizing
used
that
to.
you
They
can do
used to
more
have
with it.
mouse support, something called, and they allowed
It
Citrix to
was
do it.
accessibility, wasn't it?
It was an M1
Yeah.
mouse, and then they pulled it inexplicably. But Apple can do what Apple
What
can
they
do.
like when they like. I mean, I've noticed that this phone conveniently just stops charging occasionally. Mysteriously, within 3 days of them announcing that there's a new one.
Yeah.
Funny that. Moyle, just following on from Dan's point there, in that sort of scenario, where would you plug in the dongle that Dan needs to run the application on his PC?
You plug it into your computer, and Citrix, the protocol supports USB redirection.
Gotcha.
So that's a very, very powerful feature, and it enables you to effectively, have your cake and eat it.
So that means even if you were sort of at home on your Apple device, you'd plug that dongle into the USB port of the Apple device, and it would still sort of work through the way that the system connects.
Yeah, if I can quickly just re-show my screen, I'll just show you very quickly how that operates with a demonstration. It's just there. If you notice, this is our very latest desktop. And do you notice I've got the charge in there? If that is the charging on my actual machine.
Okay.
My laptop, not on the Citrix session.
Not on the Citrix session. Yeah, absolutely. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Right. So that gives you a perfect example of the pass-through.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. In the same regard, then, my question was about I'm seeing more and more requirements now to run software-based telephones on desktops of computers. And of course, people use USB headsets with that as well. I mean, would there be any issue in running that through the system?
I wouldn't do it. Basically, if you can imagine, we have this all of the times because one of the, what I didn't go through was the SWOT analysis in terms of running a hosted desktop. But what you can imagine is video and voice is one of the things that computers find the hardest to do. And we've all been in sessions like Zoom where it stuttered, people get knocked off or whatever, even if they're going just from their Mac or PC directly into the Zoom session. Imagine then if you're going from your PC or Mac to a remote session, that's then going out to the Zoom servers, usually when from the UK, it's to somewhere in Germany, and then back through the hosted desktop in Stevenage, and then back through to your machine. Can you see the amount of hops there are?
Yeah.
So what we tend to say is keep video and music and all of that separate to your hosted desktop.
Keep it on the local machine, yeah?
Yeah, use the hosted desktop for your most prized assets. So your documents and things you need to keep secure.
Okay.
Especially if you're sharing your machine with your kids at home. They will make sure there's loads of spyware on your machine for sure.
That's the reason they get hand-me-down iPads. That's my justification as to buying a new one, so don't take that away from me.
Is there although this is kind of like a solution that fits pretty much everywhere, Moyle, is there a particular company type or industry type where if we're talking to them we would know, hey, you're the ideal customer for Moyle?
Somewhere that complains that their emails are down all of the time, or email doesn't work, or they keep getting too much spam. Somewhere where IT's just a pain in the neck for them, and they need some guidance as well as to what to buy. As a good example, Dan, in the meeting that we had with Dan just now, the 10 minutes, he's got an application for a to-do list type thing. and that's great, and that works really well for him, and it's got him organized. But if you can imagine, there's an application for everything, from your account system to your email to your this to your that. If you're an end user, that's called multi-sourcing. You could be spending £300-400 a month in all of the applications you've got. If you go through an IT expert, we can consolidate that down a bit like, you know, those warehouse places that do all of the utility warehouse, where they just make it simple. One bill, one simple solution. We can cut through all of the nonsense that's out there, all of the sales patter, you know, all of the selling sand to the Arabs. We will tell you straight, because we earn our money from the amount that you give us each month. We're not interested in trying to sell you something you don't need. So yeah, things like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, all of these things, they're all great and everything else, but we'll cut through the crap, basically, if I'm allowed to say that. And rather than somebody spending £120 a month on their IT, we can do it for 35. How do we do that? We charge our, this is going out, isn't it? We just, ask me privately how we were able to do that.
On that note, Moyle, can we book in a one-to-one? Because what I'd be interested in doing is actually having you come and sit here and just see exactly how I work, and then you just tell me how to do it better for less money. Because I'm one of those people that's guilty of spending £35 a month here, £20 a month there, £18 a month there, and my IT bill is upward of £100, I believe. And now it's just me. I can get away with bringing that right down, because there might be something that you say, why aren't you doing that in that? And yeah, let's have a proper conversation. And I think fundamentally, if I can get everything from that computer to that or wherever, I think we're on for a win.
All right, no problem.
Okay. Yeah, Moyle, I probably may not be a client for you, but I am interested. I'm running Adobe creative software on my machine, and I say, okay, that's not, if you're talking about things like Adobe Premiere Pro, that's exactly the kind of program you don't want to host. Would I be right?
No, not necessarily, because we are already having the Adobe Cloud. We were concerned on one of our clients who decided to get the Adobe Acrobat Writer. We tend to use a product called Nuance PDF, which is probably the #2 in the market for those who know about it, because it's got all of the features of Adobe Acrobat without the fat. You know, Adobe Acrobat Cloud now is not very nice, because effectively they install the whole lot on your platform, even though you've not, you know, just in case you're going to take it. So we already know what the hit is like.
Yeah.
And we have got that in a law firm who are using it. 0 issues with performance.
Interesting.
Maybe it helps that we chuck 12 CPUs.
Probably does, yeah. I mean, I'm struggling to run Premiere Pro on my machine at the moment, to be honest. It's so resource hungry.
Actually, Premiere Pro wouldn't be a good thing. In my early days, I used to play a lot with video editing, and so I'm remembering back now to version 6, and I know that's a different type of setup. You're now, for us to do that, we are now looking at ridiculous graphics cards in the machine, and also SSD hard drives in the servers. Instead of the servers costing us upwards of about 9k a pop, which is what we pay, we're looking at about 30 grand.
Yeah.
In the early days, when myself and my business partner used to go up to Scotland in particular, Citrix used to host one of their annual events there. And they used to demonstrate things like CAD, which was really difficult to have on a hosted desktop. And at the time, things like Quake and Doom, those kind of games. Yeah. And they would have them at real time. And they would say, all of this is possible, but how deep are your pockets? So we're more of, you want to do office-based applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint. For that, you saw in my demo, real-time demo, no smoke and mirrors, easy, piece of cake, real-time, no issues. The type of things like Adobe Premiere, has got to do rendering and all sorts, that's not really suitable. But
that's why I
you
asked, really, Moyle. Yeah, just to be fair to you, because I thought probably that is very resource hungry, and I appreciate the problem.
But one of the ways that we could potentially work together, it's something that I always forget, because I'm technical sales and I'm not a trained salesperson. I'm actually not the best person at sales unless I'm in front of a technical person, because all of those bits and pieces, remember all of the numbers that I was showing where it showed we've got this as number 6, that as number 5, blah, blah, blah. Once I get into that, we wipe the floor with our competitors in terms of what we're doing to secure the desktop, literally wipe the floor with them. That's why we've got some big clients who are number 1 in their area, because even though we've been up against in the tender companies that are multi-million-pound companies, it makes no difference. At the end of the day, it comes down to people. And myself and my business partner, just through a little bit of luck, a little bit of judgment, have been in this game collectively over 60 years between us. That makes us a double act that's very hard to beat in terms of knowledge, technical knowledge.
And physically, have you not seen the size of Moyle?